Hey folks, welcome to B5 Bricks, hope you're all well. In today's video, it's a rebuild of the creator modular Parisian restaurant, the Chez Albert, into a funeral home which also doubles as a gangster mafioso type office as well. I'm going to take my time to talk through how it all came about and show you all the details, so stick around and watch until the end if you can. Now this is one of my all-time favourite modulars and I've had it since 2014. In that time it has had a bit of yellowing from the sun and it's had several rebuilds. But this time around I really wanted to make something quite unique. So for this MOC I have created a funeral home on the ground floor with a mortuary and a bereavement office, and there's parking in the tunnel for the hearse. Then on the first floor is my mobster mafia boss's office, and these guys are using the funeral home as a front for their other criminal businesses. There's a patio area as well with the mob boss's bit on the side. She's just lounging around there. Then upstairs in the loft is where they store all their TNT for breaking into bank vaults and a safe full of diamonds and money. I was inspired by the fantastic 1959 movie Some Like It Hot, with Marylin Monroe, Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. It is set in Prohibition America in the 30s and the gangsters are using a funeral home as a front for a speakeasy illegal bar. I love this film and particularly enjoy the performances by Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. It's brilliant, and of course Marylin Monroe is an absolute treasure in this. It's just such a great film. So there's my inspiration, but I'm doing the 50s and 60s instead, and that's why I've used this Cadillac car design for my hearse. And instead of a speakeasy bar, they're smuggling Playmobil weapons rather than booze, and they're using the funeral home to launder money. Oh hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, then do it now and give the video a like too, and I really appreciate all the support. So let's start with the interior, and just to show you the original set, it was actually really quite small and very narrow, and this made the interior quite cramped. If I show you from above, you can see this middle section where the restaurant was is actually really small, with the kitchen off to the right. And if you have this set, you'll know just how good the ground floor was. It's one of the best in terms of details, but it is really small. So I've gone for a larger rectangle shape, which has this external staircase built into the main building, and it provides part of the rooftop of the mortuary. It's important for me to be able to get my hands into this area, and so I made it much wider than the original. And where the kitchen was and the front staircase, I've made a tunnel to kind of park the car and put this patio area for this lassie to chill out on top and enjoy the sun and a drink. In the main area, I've reused the dark blue drapes and I've kept the floor that nice light tan colour. The mortuary area has this curved wall, which I haven't made as tall, and that's so that our hands can get in there and move things around. And this corpse is actually made using the Voldemort head and arms from a Harry Potter set, and it looks quite effective as a cadaver, poor fella. This sort of office area here is where this lassie is making arrangements with the bereaved family, and she's got a price list, and she's also making an obituary for the local newspaper. I've popped in a few other details in here and put jumper plates down for the minifigures to be moved as well, but I guess you can't really play with a mortuary realistically. There's obviously the front door, but also around the back of the mortuary is another door here, and this is where the coffins are brought in from the car. This back tailgate opens and there's some here inside. And here's the staircase up, and I've completely tiled this in black. I really like the way this looks actually. It's much better than the original. So here's a closer look inside, and here's the wife of the recently deceased with her son. It's quite sad really, but this lady is keeping them right here, trying to advise them properly. And here's a closer look inside here. The mortuary worker is putting on rouge to the deceased. There's a bone, whatever that's for, and some tools as well. It is a bit of a grim subject for Lego, I must admit. Now onto the patio. Here is the girlfriend of the mobster. She's got cocktails, cakes, coffee and money lying around, and she's just lounging about. There is a ladder up here, and you know, I did purposely make this bright pink as a juxtaposition from the rather solemn colours of the funeral home and that kind of mood, which she's obviously oblivious to as it's just her place to hang out. Now, just to remind you of the original first floor, which again you can see is really narrow, and the staircase and the restaurant veranda take up a lot of space, so I really had to put a lot of work into completely rebuilding all of this and making it a big square instead, and I built a new chimney too. So I've got this larger kind of box without an external staircase, it's internal instead, and one of the hardest things was making this window area fit better. I slimmed it down and made them one row of windows instead, and the only way to make this symmetrical was to add an extra row on the far left in grey tiles and stuff, and this was a lot trickier than you might think. I've used the same spiral staircase design from the 2020 bookshop, and that overhead fan is based on the one in the modular detective's office in the pool room, but it really sets a scene for my mob boss's office with his big desk in the middle. Placing the stairs in the corner was essential to kind of give me the space, and then I added all my details around it. I've got the Dawn's painting here as well. There's two armed henchmen in here, and they're doing a deal with this stash of highly sought after Playmobil handguns. And President Business is the buyer, but unfortunately he only brought his checkbook, and the gangsters only deal in cash, gold and diamonds, so it's all gone a bit wrong for him. You know, I really enjoyed adding all the details like furniture and lights and a wider fireplace too, and I had to incorporate the chimney somehow as well. I quite enjoyed trying to find a way around all these things. And it sits perfectly on jumper plates. It's a much better size, and it makes such a difference, I think, having the stairwell like this at the back and then that internal one as well. So the top floor in the original set was this tiny loft, which was a wee art studio with an artist who was painting like a Piet Mondrian style painting, and I love this little detail, it's great, but the space was tiny and not really that useful. But I really liked the dark blue slate rooftop build, and I've used the same idea, but I've enlarged it and made it a bit fatter as well. It also only opens on the one side, but it's much bigger now and I can get my whole hand in there. At the back is the opening for the stairs, and in here there's a desk for the accountant to count up all their swag, and there's crates of TNT and guns. And I've put to good use that brilliant safe build which came with the Riddler's helicopter from the Batwing set in 2019, and it fits really neatly in here. And just generally, I like this much wider and fatter look than the original. So onto the exterior. And I suppose the first thing you notice is all these gravestones, and this isn't a graveyard, these are all different types of gravestones and things like that, like urns and plant pots as well, which customers can choose from. And around the back there's also another one. I think this is actually from a Elves set, and there's also a supply of timber for the coffins. The hardest thing to do in this build was to move the front door to the middle and make the rest of the upper floor symmetrical as well, with windows on either side, as this meant it was an odd number of studs, and that's why on the left I had to double the wall thickness. But after a bit of trial and error and making the window smaller, which is really the sacrifice I had to make, it kind of turned out to look really good, and in fact it is actually symmetrical as well, so it works out fine. I also didn't have a funeral home sign or a graphic, but I think the white cross works just fine instead, especially with this style of building. It is a bit unusual, I suppose, for a funeral home to have that, but I kind of like the idea. I also felt incorporating the garage kind of tunnel was important, and the hearse is so big that it would be a bit tricky and I couldn't give it actual doors or shutters, but I prefer the way it just turned out anyway. It kind of just sits in there with the front hanging out. It kind of looks quite cool. I have done a separate video on the hearse, which you can watch here. But to quickly show you, I have the smuggled guns in a coffin underneath, and there's the real one on top. And this is based on the Ecto-1 Ghostbusters ambulance. So here it goes, and around the back we can take the coffins out, and our henchmen would take it upstairs, or we can store it in the attic or whatever. So there we have it. It's an unusual idea for a Lego building, but I think it's quite fitting with the grandeur of the original restaurant design, with the intricate windows and the scallop shells and the red and white awning. I also wanted to give my gangsters a cool, classic looking interior build as well, and the kids have quite enjoyed playing with the bad guys, and they're always getting raided by the police. So I'd love to know what you think. Have you done anything similar, and would you customise your Parisian restaurant too? I think it's one of the best modulars, but after 6 years it was about time for another rebuild. Hey, so thanks for watching until the end. Subscribe to the channel and click the notifications bell icon too, so you can stay up to date with all my videos with MOCs, money saving tips, and my micro Gotham City updates too. And whilst you're here, why not check out some of my other videos too, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!